Okay, I decided to switch gears here a little bit. I'm going to wire up the servos, or the stepper motors, eventually. But if I'm going to wire these up, unlike most guys, I'm going to also wire up the limit switches at the same time, because I may be able to get this wiring and the limit switch wiring in the same convolute cable. Well, what do you call that stuff? It's conduit? I don't know. Sheathing, the conduit sheathing. So I've already begun. You see I got a little mark here. I'm going to put a switch. There's going to be a switch between, this is for the x-axis, switch between these two gibs, and you see I've got one here already. It's just kind of like hanging out between the two nuts. And I'll drill a hole for that. And I'm going to have them mounted here. And then I'll have a couple of plastic blocks to trip them. I've got, you probably can't see what I'm doing here. This thing is moving. I bought these hand wheels here, so I can move this thing around by hand with these hand wheels. Glad I bought them. So let's get you in the field of view here, and I got it marked. I'm going to drill a hole here, but I'm sure you don't want to watch me drilling a hole. So I'll get back to you when I have the holes drilled for that switch. I'm back, and here's the deal. First off, I cover this up, to keep the stuff, the shavings off the rails for the y-axis here, the grease. Don't want that stuff getting into the grease. But beyond that, that's not why I started the camera again. Where I put this hole, you have the gib behind here. We don't want to tap, we don't want to drill all the way through to the gib, and if we do, it's okay. But what we want to do is tap this hole shallow. We don't want to go all the way through to the gib, because we don't want any screw when we mount this switch. We don't want the screw to touch the gib. So that's why I started the camera, and that's what I'm going to do. It's going to be a shallow tap. Well, I knew it had to happen sooner or later, but I got one screw in here, and on the other side the tap broke in the hole. The tap's still protruding from the hole a little bit, so it works to pin the switch in place. It's not going anywhere, but what happened was, where is it? Yeah. The tap handle, when I was tapping, I was turning this right-handed. I went to reach for something, and I caught my watch band here and snapped it right off. So that's what happened. Nothing much I can do about it now. I probably could fiddle with it and get the tap out, but I'm not going to bother. Not bothering anything. So I already designed a couple of plastic blocks I'll make out of HDPE on the router to use to trip these limit switches. I'll place one here and one at the other opposite end, and I'm going to get to work on that right now, as a matter of fact. Okay, I'm just doing a fit check on the first one I made, and I did do some testing, back and forth. I told you I have a handle on my stepper motors, so I can move the table back and forth. So I've moved it, and it's pretty much in the position I want. And so I'm going to use my trusty handy dandy impact center punch to try to make a mark here, right in the center of the slot on my okay, and on the other side okay, I'll take this stuff off. That's what it looks like, by the way. You can see it's got at a steep angle. I think this is like 60-degree angle. And got a little notch out over here because there's a little rivet for the scale sticking out over here, so I had to notch it out. Alright, I'll get back to you. I'm going to drill and tap a couple holes here, 440s. Hopefully, I'm not going to break another tap the way I did before. I had this tap set for almost 20 years and used the hell out of it, and I never broke a tap. The first time I did it, and it would have to be, it didn't break off in the hole. It wouldn't have broken off in the hole if it didn't catch my watch strap. Oh well. Okay, I got it installed, at least on the right side anyway. I'm not going to film the left side because the left side's the same as the right side, but here you go. You watch the meter there. I got a meter connected up to it. That's the switch open, switch closed, and that's how it works. I'll make one of these for the other side. There you go. Still got a little bit to go after it hits the switch, just for safety. Okay, that's it for that. I'm just going to finish the other side up, and then I'll have to figure out how to do the Y and the Z. Alright, starting the Y axis, and well, second verse, same as the first. Going to have a switch here, and you can't see it, it's out of camera's view, but you know, similar switch on the other side here. And the plastic gizmos will be riding on the inside of the block here. I'm going to probably have to take the servo mount off, or the stepper motor mount off to do that. I'll get back to you when I get done with this. Okay, this is the last of the Y. I just wanted to show you something. I would imagine there's some people out there that probably won't know this, but the screws I'm using are 440s. Small screw. I don't even know what this length is here, probably 1/2 inch maybe. Yeah, 1/2 inch. This is a 1/2 inch screw, but it's too long, okay, for what I'm doing here. So I don't know if you guys know this or not. The majority of you probably do, but I'm going to show you anyway. See this tool here? You can find them on eBay, find them in a lot of places. You can find them in Home Depot and other places, usually in the electrical department, because it's a wire stripper. Okay, but it also will cut screws up to a 1024 if the screw is soft enough. But these small screws like 440s, you know, you'll go nuts running around trying to find you know, the right size screw for certain applications. So it's just easier to cut them down. You just put the screw in, look for it to come through the opposite end here, like that. And that's about the length I need right there, right about flush with this. Takes off about the thickness of this tool, and squeeze, and that's it. It's cut. Screws cut. All you need to do is chase it through. I've never had a problem with the threads, but just in case. See it? Perfect. Okay, so now we can just install the switch, and I'll be done with this. I'd install the switch if I could find the switch. Here it is. Now this side here, I noticed I got a shoulder here. Unlike the other side, which just goes off the end, the shoulder may interfere with the switch. Not the switch, but the piece that activates it, the piece of plastic I've yet to make. So we shall see. If it does, I might have to put a spacer behind the switch here to get it away from this chassis here. Oh, that didn't feel good because it's not in the hole. These things are in here tight, so they're in the holes tight. Holes of the switch. I don't like what I feel here, so I'm going to back it out a little bit. There it is. Okay. Okay. Good enough. And next I'm going to have to take off the coupler and the end piece here, the motor mount, so that I can get under here, because my little blocks that are going to activate the switches are going to get drilled into the back side of that, and I'll be under here with a with a drill. So hopefully I'm not going to break any taps like I did before. Be back. So given what I just had to do, some of these things, like the switches, you might want to consider doing it before you ever mount any of this stuff. Now, I knew I had to mount switches, but I didn't know where I was going to put them. So, knowing what I know now, if I were to do a second one of these, I wouldn't even have this X on here until I got the two switches on and the Y slide lined up. So let's see, what am I going to do here now? Oh, now that I took the motor off, I should have pushed the X. Let's see if I can still do it here. Drive the X to the negative limit there so that I can get some more space under there. Come on now, coupler on here now. There you go. Let's see if I can pull this off. Now I'll put the screws back in. Alright. Okay. So we're going to put the two pieces that are going to activate the switches on this block here, so that'll make it, now it's going to make it a lot easier to drill it. But like I said, it would be a whole hell of a lot easier to drill it, you know, before you put the motor on and everything else. So, you know, if you're going to do this mod yourself, it would behoove you to do a little planning, learn by my mistakes. You know, I'm taking stuff apart here now because I didn't put it together in a proper sequence, or at least I didn't have the forethought to think about it. Another thing I wanted to mention, by the way, putting the switches on. You really want to try to make sure that the switches are on parts that don't move. Now, sometimes that's not possible. Like these two switches I just put on a little while ago. They are on the Y slide. And this slide, these two switches I'm talking about now, this slide moves back and forth. okay? But I put them here on the Y block, or the Y slide, because it moves a minimal amount compared to the X slide. Had I put these switches up here on the X slide and put the block down on, on the Y slide, in other words, reverse these two, I would have some long wires, okay, because the X slide slides back and forth, and the switches would be attached to the X slide, and I'd have to have these long wires, to follow the X slide. Not good practice, in my opinion. So try to keep the switches on parts that move a minimal amount or don't move at all. Like when I do the Z, I'm going to try to mount the switches on this. It's got an L bracket here for there's a scale on here. Probably don't need any more, but I might take this L bracket out of here, and the switches will be on the back column here, which doesn't move, and the portions that little plastic, I don't know what you call these things, but whatever they are, that activate the switches will be on the moving part, on the head itself. So that's the way I'm going to do it. All right, I yacked away enough. I gotta maybe see if the same kind of block I made for the X slide will work in here. If it does, I'll use it. If it doesn't, I'll design another one or modify that one to work. Get back to you. Okay, I just finished up the Y-axis, and the only screw up I had on this axis, the only screw up was this screw is all of these are 440s except for this one. It's a 632. That's because I grabbed the wrong drill. It was laying out on the bench here, and I drilled it oversized. So it didn't matter. The gods were looking down upon me. So if you watch the meter here, you'll see when the gauge, the switching gauges with the cam, that's what you call it, a cam. It's almost right to the limit. And likewise on the other side, but I don't have the meter connected up to it, but you get the idea. Now, what I'm going to do is, while these things, I'll show you this side here too, but while I'm yakking away here, I'll hook this up. What I'm going to do is wire this stuff up and dress it nicely, to go off to the box here, while the motor's off here and it's still all open and accessible. Like I said, learn from my mistakes. There you go. This one's right at the limit too. I like a half a turn here. All right, I'm happy with that. I got it all set up. Just have to do the Z, but I don't have any switches. I have to wait for eBay delivery. They come in packages of 10, and I used, I think, 6 on my CNC laser machine, and I had 4 left, so I'm short 2 for the Z-axis. So this is as far as I can go with the limit switches anyway. But like I said, I'm going to get this stuff, some of this stuff wired up. These 2 switches wired up, these 2 switches wired up. Get some clamps or something on the side here to dress it nicely, and sometime this week I'll get my 2 switches and I'll work on the Z-axis. All right, that's it for now. I don't know how I'm going to put this, how this is going to end up in the video. Most guys have a separate section for the limit switches, but it doesn't make any sense to me to build the whole thing, wire it up, wire all the stepper motors up and everything, and ignore the switches. Not, you know, now that I'm going back and I'm doing this, I'm realizing I have to remove stuff, drill holes, tap holes, do all kinds of things that I just should have done while the whole thing was apart. And, you know, I had access to everything, so. Oh well, you know, hindsight. So, like I said, learn from my mistakes. If you do this installation, this CNC Fusion kit, just remember, try to think ahead that you're going to have to use, you know, you're going to have to install limit switches. So when stuff is not on, it's easy to drill this stuff on a drill press. You know, if you have the X-axis slide off, you know, the table off, if you have a drill press, it's easy to carry it over to the drill press and drill the holes for the limit switches and for the cams, you know. But once it's all together, you know, you're stuck here with a twist drill or a, you know, hand drill, twist drills, braking, hand tapping. Well, that's just my advice. Watch my video, plan ahead. As you're disassembling the thing, ready to get it put together, first thing that should pop into your mind is limit switches. I've got to put the limit switches on at the same time. Okay, I'm going to start on the Z-axis now. And you see this scale. I'm going to take this scale out of here. It's just going to be in the way and it's really not needed anymore. Neither is this pointer. The scale is on a, I think you probably took it off already anyway. I think we had this off when we did the Z-axis, but it's on a piece of angle, black piece of angle iron there, and a few screws hold it in, attached to the column. So I'm going to take that off, and then I'm going to figure out where to put the switches and the cams. Well, not too hard to figure out where to put the switch for the upper limit, because you hit the shoulder. You can see it. I mean, can't go beyond the shoulder on this piece. So it's not too hard to figure out where to put the switch for this. I'm going to put it right here. Right here, let's say. And the cam will be on the head. Problem is, when we get down here, I really don't know where to put the switch, because I don't know how low I'm ever going to go with this thing. Obviously, I don't want to be hitting the work surface here. You know, but practically speaking, when there's a tool in here, you know, I don't know, I might have to go watch a couple of videos and, you know, I never cut anything on this thing, so I have no practical experience. So, how low is too low? I don't know. I guess I'll have to go find out. I'm going to put the first switch in first anyway. And then I'll have an alcoholic beverage as I sit in front of the screen and watch a few videos, watch a few guys cutting stuff, see if I can get some idea of how low is too low on this thing. All right, get back to you. I just realized that what I was pointing to before, the shoulder, I was calling the shoulder, is this right here. It was out of camera's view. This is the Z-axis, is part of the Fusion kit. The head, right here, got this damn thing in the way here. the head, this moves up and down. I got the switch mounted on a column here, thusly, and I didn't put the cam on there yet, but the point was that you can see where this thing is going to hit the shoulder of that CNC Fusion block right there. So that's why I said it's pretty easy to tell, you know, where you need to put the switch. Now I just need to put a cam in here. That's no big deal. Wish I knew what was behind this thing, you know, without having to take this off. I don't like drilling holes where, you know, when I don't know what's behind it, but I guess in this instance I'm just going to have to do it. To put a cam on, put a switch. And this is the last switch, by the way. I had it in my head that I needed a lower limit switch down the column here to protect the head from going too low, but that's not true. There is no such thing. On the Z-axis, there is not going to be a lower limit switch, because you don't really know. You never know how low you're going to go on this thing. So if you go too low, you're going to crash into your workpiece, or you're going to crash into the you know, the table. That's the way it is. There is no low limit switch to protect you in that way. So this is a combination home and limit switch in the Z-axis. All the other axes do have two switches, so protects you from over driving an axis, you know, either in the X or the Y, but the Z has no lower limit. So that's the way it is. Okay, so let me get this cam switch on, and then we're going to move on and get this thing wired up. And still need to, if you recall, I took a break from this metal box I made here, so that I could get these limit switches on, and we'll get this metal box drilled out. Probably going to have to put 3 holes in here for the X, Y, and Z cable. And I'm going to sneak these limit switch wiring, in with those cables if I can, wherever I can. I will do that. And then we can finish this thing up.